Hey Tap Fam, Mike here. Do you want to fill your fridge with unique craft beers, ciders, or seltzers that you can't find locally? Then Tavour is your answer. I partner with them to bring you this exclusive offer for my Taproom listeners. When you use the promo code TAPROOM25, you get a $10 credit towards your next purchase when you spend $25 in the app or online. Tavour has it all, from IPAs to stouts, sours, ciders, and so much more. So make sure you use the promo code TAPROOM25 to get a $10 credit towards your next purchase. And now, on to the episode.
All right, and we're back. This is episode 107 of the Taproom Podcast, and I'm your host, Mike. I probably sound a little stuffy. I'm finally feeling better. Been sick as a dog since Tuesday. But I'm feeling better now. Finally, I'm going to go have a beer today at Green Cheek, and then got some other stuff going on. But yeah, this episode is 107 is with Brandon Montgomery of the Brew Stilled Podcast. Honestly, what a really good dude, and it was really fun to kind of hear about his journey in podcasting, and we talked about that, and we talked about like his love for craft beer, and it was just a really cool conversation. Just a really good dude. Definitely check out his podcast. Yeah, so Brewstilled, and it's the same thing, the Brewstilled on Instagram. So definitely go give him a follow. Just a really, really nice guy, and just a fun comment. I love talking to podcasters because and it's actually Brewstilled Podcast on Instagram. I love talking to podcasters just because sometimes it's nice to be able to not vent or anything like that, but just kind of like share, like, what the trials or like tribulations can kind of be like, or, some of them, that's probably a little heavy of a term to use, but I just feel like, stuff like that, like what we kind of go through on the day-to-day basis and, putting out weekly content and stuff like that. So, yeah. Man, my nose is still bugging me. Still a little stuffy. Let's see. Oh, I want to say thanks, guys, for I may have mentioned this before, but like on Spotify, I think there's like 94 5-star reviews right now. So I really appreciate that. All I'm saying is it'd be sweet to get to 100. If you guys can do that, like if you guys can leave a review on, I think Spotify, you can't leave a review, but you could put it's just a star rating system. But even on Apple, you could do the same thing. You don't have to leave a review, but if you left a 5-star rating, that'd be pretty sweet. I'd be pretty stoked about that. Just saying. Also, let's see what else we got. My t-shirts are available. The link's in the bio. It's through. Wow, I can't even remember right now. I'm telling you, my brain is just bleh. It's been such a long week, and I literally just, there was times during the week where I just felt like, man, I was done. TeePublic, there we go. Couldn't think of it. T-shirts are through TeePublic, but the link is in my bio on the Instagram. Yeah. Let's see. Also, if anybody listening out there, brewers or anyone just wanting a logo done or anything like that, or can work or anything like that, you can always reach out to my brother. It's at Wild Riley Supply on Instagram. He's actually working with a new brewery that I've actually been on the show. I've had been on the show, but I don't want to say what he did just yet because I know they're gonna kind of do a thing together, I think so. But he just designed a t-shirt for a brewery. He's doing counter work obviously for Luis over at Level Up. Shout out to my bro. And speaking of Luis, Taproom Tales, baby. I love being able to do that with him. And if you guys haven't seen it, it's like all the episodes are on YouTube, at the Taproom Podcast on YouTube, and they're also on Instagram as well. And then they're also on Level Up Brewcade's YouTube and Instagram too. So you guys can check those out. New episode coming out this week called The Talk Show, episode 5. So hope you guys enjoy that. They're just real short videos, like 2 to 4 minute kind of videos. So in the vein of Cheers, like I've mentioned before. So yeah. All right, let's see. So John Cena turned heel yesterday. He's on his farewell tour. Was not expecting John Cena to turn heel. It was actually Doug Velicky from Rev Brew in Chicago sent me a message or tagged me in a post. It was pretty funny. You should definitely go check it out. If you're not following Beer Aficionado, like, I don't know what you're doing. He's so funny, and he's like my wrestling brother from another mother, so definitely got to check that out. So Mania is going to be crazy. So Cena aligns himself with The Rock. Cena versus Cody at Mania. The Elimination Chamber was good. Honestly, the women's Elimination Chamber was so much better. But I mean, the men's was good too. But yeah, definitely, I'm excited for Mania. We already got the menu kind of semi-planned out. I'm gonna brine brisket for about 5 days and make pastrami sandwiches. I'm gonna buy like a 10-pound brisket. It is gonna go down. I'm so stoked for Mania. It's a month and 18 days, give or take. My math, well, 17 months and 17 days, because I think it's the 19th and the 20th. So, actually, Morgan's birthday. Hey, here we go, Morgie. She's passed out. Too many beers last night. Just kidding. I don't give my dog beers. Maybe like a splash. Maybe like a splash of like Hams or a Coors Light. All right. Well, let's see. I think that's all I got. Stay tuned for the outro. We'll talk about the upcoming episodes. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the interview with Brandon. Like I said, and Brandon, just speaking to you right here. Thank you, man, for being on the show. Really appreciate you. Sorry it took so long. I didn't realize how backed up I was on episodes. But yeah, just a great time with you, and I hope everybody enjoys listening. Cheers.
All right, guys, we're back in the tap room, and I'm your host, Mike, and I have a very special guest on the show today. It's Brandon Montgomery, the founder of the Brew Stilled Podcast. How you doing today, bud?
I think, Michael, they're good. They're very good, Jonathan. How are you today? Sorry if I mix up there. Very good.
Oh, it's all good. No, I'm doing well, man. Just got off work. I'm glad we get to do this. I know we've been kind of planning this out for a little bit.
Yep, definitely.
I'm glad we finally get to do it.
Well, great to be here. Thank you.
Oh, of course, man. Can you tell us, how everything got started for you, like when it comes to craft beer or even just starting the podcast? How did it all start?
Well, for craft beer, I never saw myself as becoming a beer drinker. I know in college I had like a couple of beers. I wasn't a beer drinker in college. And then, I had a few beers. And then after college, I got into, going out in the real world. It was after I graduated not long after 2008 financial crisis. I kind of bounced around the country, had some beers in Minnesota, Florida after leaving Ohio, and then ended up in California at age 29 and still wasn't much of a beer drinker. And I'm living in Davis, California. And I'm living with other people, and then one night, we went to a bar called City Hall Tavern in Davis, California. And I had a beer there. It was a wheat beer, and it really wasn't that great. I thought it was a crappy beer, but the bar was good. The ambience was good. And that following Saturday night, we're all in the house where we're living at in Davis. And they're all, just sitting at home in the house. I thought, Saturday night, anyone going anywhere? They said no. I said, no, go back to that bar, City Hall Tavern. I said, we'll check it out. And I went there and just started having more beers on their tap menu. And from there on out, I was there every Saturday night, just having different beers, mainly IPAs. And it became my Saturday spot. So that was where my craft beer journey began, over at City Hall Tavern in Davis, which sadly is no longer there given COVID. It shut down during COVID. And then after Davis, I moved over to Sacramento, California, where I live now, and just started exploring the craft beer scene, the breweries, different bars, joined the Cornhole League, which was at an old dive bar called Alley Cats, which also was a COVID casualty. But just, getting to know all these breweries and bars, and started off to branch off to different beer styles. So that was my craft beer journey began back in 2014. Actually, 2013, and at age 29, I thought I wasn't say I was sober curious, but I never thought myself being a beer drinker, but it just took the right beer and the right bar to make that happen.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I feel like that's kind of how it starts for a lot of people. Like, you try one beer and it's like, man, wait a second. And it kind of gets gets the gears going in your head, and you're like, oh, wait, now I kind of want to try this. And then, like you said, venturing out to different styles and trying different things. Yeah. That's awesome. So how did the podcast come about?
Well, I always wanted to do something with voiceover and podcasting. I was like for a long time wanted to do this. Started back in 2015, I wanted to do something. But then, started working on my day job. I was traveling a lot for my day job. And so I was always thinking about doing something with that. I took acting classes and also voiceover classes, and how to do voiceover and also acting as well. And then the COVID pandemic came in year 2020, back 5 years ago. And then also I do photography on the side, and everything's all locked down. Breweries are shut down. Bars are shut down. I was doing more like the speakeasy during COVID. It was kind of crazy going to bars when we're supposed to be closed down. But then the protests happened. So I'm photographing the protest throughout 2020, all the riots that occurred. And that was a 7-month saga. And after it's all over on Inauguration Day in 2021, I was thinking all these protests are over. What I'm going to do now. And 3 months after that, I started a podcast. So I started thinking, what kind of podcast I want to do. I started talking I decided to do like a beer podcast, but also talking about, TV shows, sports, and also life topics. And so I started back in 2021 in the month of March. And my first TV show was Captain America and the Winter Soldier, and also For All Mankind from Apple TV. And I started talking about beer pairings with the show, buying beers, talking about the beers with the shows, and just started to build from that. And also talking about the NFL as well, with NFL coverage, talking about certain NFL teams based on the best storyline, but looking for the best beer pairing as well. So that was back in March of 2021 when I got into the podcast. I do a lot of studying, like how to start a podcast and how to do. I reached out to fellow podcasters here in Sacramento. She gave great advice on how to do that, and I've been doing it ever since. And the name Brew Stilled comes from a combination of the word brewed and distilled. I used the word generator to come up with the name. It's supposed to generate like a mindset of being calm and relaxed while having your favorite beverage as brewed, and just talking about whatever, like, bar conversations. Like we talk about at the bar, like anything at the bar, and over our favorite beer or bourbon or whiskey. And that's kind of where it started to come from. It started to build from that. And, now I do guest interviews. We talk about life topics, while also talking about the NFL, TV shows, and just building from that. It's been a great experience.
That's great. Yeah, no, I've seen some of some of the shows. One of the ones I listened to was the Ted Lasso and Deion Sanders one.
Yeah, that's a new concept I'm trying out, where I talk about a fictional character and a real life figure and how they have similar personalities and similar challenges. So it's kind of like something new I'm trying out. I see a lot of Ted Lasso and Deion Sanders. I see a lot of similarities because when they both entered their profession, they're kind of not taken seriously, but also have a right mindset as well. So that was like a fun experiment to kind of just go over how those two guys are similar to one another.
Okay. No, that's cool. I mean, and I'm a big NFL guy. Like I was looking in your background, I could see the Avengers there, so we'll have to talk a little comics and movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite beer styles?
I'm more of a lager guy, also a darker beer guy, which they're so night and day. But more like sessionable lagers, like Vienna lagers, and also like porters and stouts, and also barrel-aged ones at the same time, like barrel-aged whiskey barrels. River North Brewing out of Colorado has a great barrel-aged program where they have good stouts aged in Colorado whiskey barrels. And then Jackrabbit here in West Sacramento has a good barrel-aged program as well. So, nice barrel-aged beers, and also like the lagers are pretty good. I love those as well. Also a red ale. I love the red ales also. And so, I started off with IPAs, and they have a big, strong place in the beer market. A lot of consumers like them. A lot of beer drinkers like them. But I've been directed more towards lagers. I mean, just last month, back in December, actually, I brewed with a couple guys. We brew every now and then. We brewed a British IPA and a pale ale.
Ooh,
and learning home brewing, and also learning how to home brew. But favorite beer style, definitely lagers and darker beers.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned reds. Like reds, you don't see them as on. I think you're slowly starting to see them come back a little bit, depending on where you go. But you are seeing them more on menus now.
Yeah, and like winter ales is another one I like too. Winter ales come out once a year. Not very many breweries make them though, so I like those. I get them when I can. Einstock, the winter ale out from Einstock is really good. It comes out every Christmas. I just want to get it every year. I get it when it comes out because it sells out quickly. But it's a nice winter ale that I recommend for anybody for a good holiday beer.
Well, definitely. It's like you mentioned some of the brewery, like that brewery in Colorado. Are there some breweries local to you in Northern California that you frequent or you would suggest people to go to?
Yeah, here in Sacramento, we got a great beer scene here in Sacramento. I love going to Jackrabbit. They got good varieties of beers on the menu: Belgians, IPAs, lagers, nice good stouts. There's also Matty Groves, they've been open for about a year now. Actually, recently, for a year actually, and they got good variety. They get more like a variety of beer. IPAs are also being more bold in their variety. And then there's also Flatland Brewing. We got Moxa, we got Moonraker, and Slice Brewing, who are always doing beer releases and always developing great beer styles. And they'll be in both, like a lot of IPAs, but also Flatland has a nice lager that came out a couple years ago. And then Moxa does their releases, but it's like they're doing releases all the time, which is great seeing more frequent beer releases. So those are breweries I really tend to gravitate towards. And also Track 7 here in Sacramento, which is my local brewery, is also what I gravitate towards as well. Nice, good space, good food trucks, and nice vibe to it, and a nice open space. A great day to spend a Saturday.
Nice. That's awesome. And isn't it friggin' awesome that, like, even like, you know, in Sacramento or like anywhere now, I feel like there's a local brewery that you can go to where if you go back to, like you said, when you first started getting back into it or getting into it in like 2014, like it just wasn't, like it wasn't like there. Like it was still in like in its infancy, I feel like, craft beer.
Yeah. Sacramento, Jackrabbit opened when I first moved to Sacramento. So they've been open a little over 10 years. But now Sacramento's really starting to expand as a beer scene. And of course, there's challenges with the beer scene right now, but there's that we're seeing that happen right now with the beer scene, like different tasting preferences are starting to change. So we're starting to see that now also, but also the Bay Area. I do go out there quite a bit for the Bay Area to check out their beer scene. And next month will be Beer Week in San Francisco, which tends to be my first beer event of the year.
Oh, nice. What's that like?
It's good. I mean, they got a nice crowd. They got a beer. They usually open with the beer festival. Last year they had a gala. This year they're going to have separate beer festivals in the regions around the Bay Area. Like Oakland will have one. Usually there's one in San Jose and also in downtown San Francisco, which is the one I usually attend. But all the breweries had their own events, and there's always something going on. There were beer releases, the tap room's got stuff going on. It's a great way to explore the beer scene in San Francisco and also check out different breweries.
Awesome. Yeah, anytime I go travel somewhere or anything like that, I'm always looking for a new brewery to either record at or even just to go have some beers at. But then I'm also looking for like the best burger in the area too, because I'm such a big burger fan.
Yeah, burgers and beer. Yes, that is a good combo. Nice food combo. You know, here in Sacramento, we got burgers and brew, and they have all a good hamburger menu, but also great tap stock.
That sounds awesome. That'd probably be the first place I went if I was up there.
Yeah, they're great. They got a good food menu, and you know, food and beer pairings is another thing I'm really interested in as well. How beer and food go well together.
Oh yeah, what would be yours? Like if you had your go-to, like something with a beer or food with a beer.
You know, over Thanksgiving, I made German meatballs with a Kolsch. That was a nice combo. So when I cook, I try and find out what beer goes with that. It's not always easy. Sometimes I got to travel a little further out to find the beer I'm looking for at a tap room. Not a tap room, a bottle shop with a nice selection. So that can be challenging also, but it's also really well when it's done correctly.
Of course. Other thing I wanted to ask, because I was about to ask that, because honestly, I love talking to podcasters because, I mean, we all go through the same struggles. We all have all have the same stuff that we love about it. So I was we'll start with like, what's your favorite part about like podcasting?
And my favorite part is just, you know, the people that you meet along the way, and also how you learn about the world, learn more about the beer industry, where it's going, and also just having that experience by, you know, communicating with the world through a microphone and just having that experience. And you never know where it's going to go, and also how it's going to relate to people, and just, you know, educating people about things, just telling them about whatever's on your mind, and also helping to promote the beer scene at the same time, given all the challenges that's facing right now.
For sure. That's one of the reasons why I gravitated towards your show, because you're talking about beer, but then you're also talking about things that I love, like movies. I have I absolutely adore, like I have a huge movie collection, TV shows as well, and sports. Like, I mean, because sports, I mean, I feel like all like four of those things, whether it's craft beer, movies, TV shows, or sports, they all bring people together.
Right.
Yeah, and I feel like your show does that.
And that's great because I like to pair craft beer with the NFL. You know, beer. I went to an NFL game about a couple years ago, and I saw Michelob being advertised. I thought, well, you know, more corporate breweries are going to have the money to advertise their brand.
Yeah.
But I like talking about craft beer in the NFL because hopefully it inspires people to check out their local brewery wherever they're at their nearest NFL stadium. I do believe there is a place for craft beer in the NFL. Of course, the money's not there for breweries to advertise at a stadium or probably be at a stadium. But a lot of breweries, they show NFL games. Craft breweries do that. And I just think that shows that the craft beer can coexist with the more commercial beer in the NFL and have their fan base gravitate towards those beers.
Definitely. And like even what's really cool is like out here, like in the LA Orange County area, like the Dodgers and the Angels, they're actually going like almost like all in on like craft beer. So you can find a ton of craft beer at Angel Stadium or at Dodger Stadium. And it's cool to see that it's grown, so much where even like smaller breweries are even able to get in there because they want to do what they can for the community.
Yeah, and also trying to find a beer to pair with that week in the NFL. I know last year I was a Buffalo lager, and I paired it with the Buffalo Bills. They had the opening game. So I tried to find beers that, kind of relate to the topic of the NFL at the time. It's not the easiest thing sometimes because sometimes the beer is not available. So try and, build an episode around the beer and how that beer speaks to the topic.
I love that. And I know I mentioned because you have the Avengers back there.
Yeah,
Is Marvel like your go-to?
Yeah, I'm a big Marvel guy. Lately Marvel though is kind of like dry spell. I'm a big Avengers guy. So when I talked about Marvel with my first episode in the podcast, Falcon and Winter Soldier, that was a big thing for me. But the posters behind me are kind of like, I got those when I first moved into my condo, and there's one poster for each Avengers film, and also kind of symbolizes that us as beer drinkers, podcasters who talk about beer. When the beer industry is in trouble, the Avengers will come to defend it. It's kind of a way that help the way to defend the beer industry from everything it's facing right now. So, but also help a kind of a tribute to the Avengers and also what Marvel has done for society.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and it's like another thing that it's brought people together. I mean, was it when Endgame came out? I remember I was like, I'm gonna wait a while to go see it because it was like every showing was sold out. So.
Yeah, I saw it the first night. I made sure I was very big on getting it to see the first weekend. I was really big on that, arranging my schedule to make it happen. I saw it 3 times in theaters, actually, because I knew it was the last chapter, and I thought might as well do it now because we're not sure we're going to see something like that ever again.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy. But were you into comic books before, too, or was it just
little bit.
Movies that you got into?
A little bit into comics, but also more to the films. I really like DC comics and Marvel comics before the movies came out, so kind of a combination of the two.
Okay, yeah, no, because I grew up ever since I was a kid, I'm still a kid at heart, man. Like I still read comics. Like I don't buy them as often as I used to because I just run out of room. But
yes,
I still anytime there's a special release, I gotta pick. I mean, if something like that, I gotta pick it up.
Oh yeah.
So what are some of your other favorite movies?
Movies I'm more like an independent film guy. I don't talk about movies. Okay. I would try to talk more about films on the podcast. I want to do it more this year, looking at movies that are out there.
Okay.
More like crime drama, or like in like the old action. Sometimes really depends on the film. Science fiction is something I'm big in. I was also big into. Should be a pretty good year for movies. I'm not sure exactly what's out there right now. I do want to see what's out. Movies are kind of not what they used to be too. Movies since post-COVID. So, but mainly extreme movies at home to see what's being streamed and also what's being produced by the streaming channels in terms of original content, and which is kind of mixed right now.
Yeah, I've always kind of liked that, like the lower budget or like the indie films, because I don't know, I feel like the story's a lot more there. I feel like anything that they put out, in the movie theaters, I feel like, that's not in every case, so I shouldn't say like all of them. But I feel like a lot of them, like if it's not like a tentpole franchise, there's isn't a huge release, and it's harder to see other movies. But I did watch The Complete Unknown the other day, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. The Bob Dylan one, that was a good one.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. But I heard it's good. I haven't seen it yet, but I heard a lot of good things about it.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the ones I listened to was a while because I was like going through your feed was the Loki. But when you talked about like the
Yes, yeah, that was Loki was big for me. I talked about the first season of Loki, and that was nice talking about that, and also about but Loki kind of had influence on a podcast in the early days. I think that was probably the fourth show I talked about. I called it the Summer of Loki because it came out during the summer. Yeah. And for those episodes, I was trying to talk about, beer around the world at different beer scenes around the world, drinking scenes. And then so Loki was kind of one of my fourth show, and probably one of my biggest ones I talked about in the early days of the podcast. And of all people, too, Loki's like the villain in Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of changed my perception of Loki. Like, this is a different Loki also, and a different, more wilder, wacky show. And that was also something nice to talk about. I didn't talk about season 2 because there was something going on with the writer's strike with SAG. And I thought, well, talking about shows during a strike, I didn't want that to be like an issue for the podcast, so I didn't talk about shows during that time, and I didn't talk about Loki season 2, but it was great talking about the first season, and that's a great show.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've seen most of it. I still need to get back into it. I'm the worst at completing shows.
Yeah.
So I need to definitely get back into it. What are some other things you love about podcasting?
Just talk about whatever comes to mind. I mean, last year I talked about turning 40 because I was at the Craft Beer Summit, California Craft Beer Summit this is back in the 23 California Craft Beer Summit. They're talking about younger people not liking beer, and I thought, well, I'm about to turn 40 soon. So I started talking about last year, a series of episodes about turning 40. I did one about the positive side about turning 40, one about when millennials turn 40, and also finding love after 40. So a series of episodes about what I call the road to 40. I brought in psychologists, talk about a different topic about turning 40. That was nice, talking about those in the mental health field, about what that is, about what age 40 means to people, but also why it's not that bad. I mean, that was something I wanted to talk about as well on the podcast, because it's more about, what happens to people when they leave the tap room, where does life happen? And those are topics that tend to really affect people about getting older and also feeling out of place in an industry that's also faces its own challenges, that people are probably not drinking like they used to be, especially from the younger ages. Yeah. But also, how does that affect the drinker as well? Where is their place in the world, and how do they see themselves when they're facing this?
Man, that's really cool. I'll have to get into those episodes and listen to that, because I feel like nowadays, like, people, they can kind of they worry too much, and a lot of times they worry about stuff that they can't control. I mean, and stuff ends up being okay, but I feel like the 40 thing is that's a really interesting topic.
Yeah, 40 feels great. I did an episode about turning 40. When I turned 40, I went to San Francisco to celebrate that. I went to my first brewery at age 40 was Black Hammer Brewing in San Francisco, an excellent brewery with a nice menu. Okay. Then I went to the Liquid Gold Taproom. That's a nice tap room in San Francisco. Had to walk through the Tenderloin to get there.
Oh, okay.
And then I went to Otherwise Brewing, which they're a past guest on the podcast, a gluten-free brewery in San Francisco. Great beer selection, all gluten-free, in a nice part of San Francisco. And then I went to Enterprise Brewing. That was my other brewery that weekend, who has a really nice sourdough stout.
Ooh, all right.
It is an amazing stout. I think I'll probably go there during beer week. It depends what's going on, but it's amazing. They were just celebrating a 1-year anniversary. So the 1-year anniversary comes around when I turned 40. Nice way to wrap up that trip and just check it out. It's good to see them last a year, and they're still going on strong. Another nice brewery I recommend is San Francisco Enterprise Brewing. Great tap room and great ownership.
Awesome. That sounds great. I mean, I need to get up that way. I mean, I haven't been up that way in a long time, but yeah, I need to get up that way and check out the scene and maybe get some people on the show.
It's good. It's great. It's a great beer scene to check out, the Bay Area. There's good breweries in Oakland. San Jose's got Clandestine Brewing. That's a nice one. Well, who does more of a variety, not so much IPAs. That's what I like about them. When I went there the first time, they had you got more like lagers, more like European style beers on the menu. I really liked the variety they had there.
Do you ever venture down to Monterey?
Not yet. I want to get out there. I do know Dust Bowl has a tap room out there. I have not seen Monterey yet, but I definitely want to get out there and check out what they got out there, because I heard good things about Monterey. I just haven't been out there yet.
Oh, yeah, no, they have some great breweries. There's, Alvarado Streets. They have Alvarado
Okay.
Street down there.
Mhm.
Also, they have one that I really loved that I got to go to while I was out there. It's
Mhm.
Other Brother. Man,
Okay.
that place was really cool. And it's a really cool brewery, like a cool tap room and everything like
Okay.
that. It's got pinball machines and stuff. It's really, really nice. Great beer.
Yeah, I might have seen their stuff at a beer festival. The name does sound very familiar.
Okay. Yeah, no, definitely. I would check them out. I'm trying to remember some other ones. I think there was 2 other ones I went to. I just can't think of off the top of my head. But so we've talked about what you love about podcasting. What are some of the harder things or challenges we could say like during the podcast?
I think challenge. I think it really depends, like what kind of podcast you're doing. I think maybe doing a beer podcast and what's going on in the beer industry could probably see some of the effects of that. I know there's in the talking points like social media. I mean, social media could be a challenge depending on how people approach social media. Me, I don't worry too much about social media. I know some podcasters, they vent on their podcast about not having enough followers on social media, not getting enough download numbers. I thought, well, I wouldn't talk about it on the podcast, but I can see why people get frustrated over that. I mean, social media is like, people want more followers on Instagram. And I thought, well, that's nice, but, I wouldn't bank everything just on that. I think more about the challenges. People get challenged about maybe patience is something that people get worked up on. I can see that being an issue. I just think that you really just got to keep going with podcasts. It's just people need to do the podcast that they like to do and enjoy the process. Yeah, there are times where it could be frustrating. That could be something. And also trying to get maybe guest interviews could be an issue. I mean, I once had a brewery. I reached out to, I won't mention her name here, but I reached out to a brewery. They're doing this beer festival. I said, hey, when you want to come on and talk about your beer festival? I said, oh, yeah, we'll do it. We're all for it. And I said, we'll talk with so-and-so about getting a time set up. I emailed them back to set up a time and never heard back. And it's kind of like, I think I was listening to this search engine podcast one day. And they're talking about finding guests on their podcast. They talk about it's kind of like dating. And I can see probably why that is. You're trying to find someone to come on your show and then you don't hear back from them. That just happened once, but I thought it's like a one-time thing. So that could be a challenge as well, trying to coordinate times with people who may not come on when you think they will. And also maybe, social media, as mentioned that earlier. But I can see maybe patience could be one too.
No, definitely.
But I think,
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, patience, but also I think I can see those being challenges, but also now there's been talk about podcasts are declining. I don't think that's the case. Podcasts will always be around. There's always going to be a need for that. It's a great medium that's really easy to do and also available for everybody.
Well, definitely. And I feel like, especially like with a craft beer too, like I feel like everybody's super supportive for the most part. And I'm totally with you when it comes to like the patience of the social media. Like, yeah, I do have to like, post stuff, all the time, but I mean, some get hits, like some get, really good views, some don't. I mean, that's just that's just the way it is. I mean, it can be like, man, like, well, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but it's just whatever the algorithm is like, that's sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, that's just life.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, but even just trying to find something to post or to try to do stuff, but even getting guests too, it's not always easy.
Right. Yeah, I'm a variety show podcast. I don't do guest interviews every episode. I've tried to do at least maybe one a month, but it really depends on the time of the year, who's available, also availability as well, and what you got going on. And but that's also, coordinating schedules. And it's just great having people on though. It's just great. I mean, I've had a variety of guests come on, talk about sports, the paranormal, psychological topics, having breweries on the podcast to help promote their brewery. That's always an amazing experience. And also checking out what they got going on in the beer industry. Well, also talking about the state of the craft beer industry, getting their input and where industry is, what the challenges are, and where it's going to go in the future.
Well, yeah, definitely. I love talking to, because every week I usually have, I have a guest every week, but like you mentioned about trying to get people, it can be hard sometimes, but it got to the, before when I first started doing this, I would worry every day about, like, oh, am I going to be able to get something? Am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to do that? Now I'm like, it's going to work out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and even now too, like I'm able to bank episodes and it makes it easier because like you do yours every week, I do mine every week, and I have to have a guest every week. And I just don't let it worry me anymore. Like it'll be fine.
Yeah, I think the hardest too is I listen to every episode back when before I release it. So having to listen to yourself talk, that's also can be a little awkward at times because I wonder how is it going to be received. There's always that's always that anxiety, but also there's really nothing to worry about. I mean, everyone has their own speech patterns and also different way of communicating. But no, it's just a journey. I love the journey that it brings. It's like going to outer
100%.
space. There's always exploration going on.
There's always something new you can bring to the table. I quote Shawshank all the freaking time. Like I say, get busy living or get busy dying.
Exactly.
The second you stop growing and you stop trying to learn is the second you get closer to being in the ground.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, and that's it's the words. I wish more people were willing to live, buy stuff like that, or be able to just not just find something you love, right? Like, I mean, and clearly you've been doing this for so long, you love it.
Yeah.
You can hear it in your voice and how much you care about it. And honestly, speaking of your voice, I could picture you doing movie trailers with your voiceover.
Yeah, that's something I would like to do someday. I always talk about where am I going to be going into podcasts in the future. I'll never retire from podcasting because I just love it. It's just a great thing to do. It's like Tom Brady. He just keeps going in football in some way. And I talk about sometimes about Tom Brady in the podcast. He's not playing football, but he's still in the game in some way. So I always think, well, where am I going in the future? Where am I going to go? Eventually I want to do more voiceover, do more. That's a really tricky industry to navigate. It's kind of like a next quest right now. But also, I just want to keep podcasting. And there's some guys I listen to, Steve Palazzolo and Sam Monson. They co-host the Checked and Mike podcast, and they used to work for PFF. They talked about one time doing a podcast about 80s movies, not just because they like it, not because they make money or just to get notoriety, is because they love podcasting. And that's what's great about podcasting, is the passion people have for it and just doing it because they love it. And that's what I like about it. It's me just talking about what I like, but also want to help, help promote the beer industry and promote people's beers and beverages, and also branch out to other beverages and just keep exploring.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like podcasting too, and I don't know if people might not understand it, but it's super therapeutic for me. And I'm sure it probably is for you.
Definitely. Same here. Yeah. Every podcast I talk to is also mentioned the same thing.
Yeah. And being able to just voice to be able to get that out there. And I'm sure there's days too where you're probably like, oh man, I'm tired today. But the second I turn on the laptop and I hit record, all that goes away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's like during football season where if a team I'm covering plays on Sunday night, I thought, do I talk about them on Sunday night or I do it Monday morning? So I got to figure out when to do. I got to get myself in the right mindset. But I know I got to get this out on Monday, so it's got to come out eventually. So I kind of adjust my mindset, what I'm going to be doing, if I'm going to talk about Sunday night and then edit the episode, or do it early Monday morning. So kind of just navigating around that. But in the end, it always works out.
Well, for sure. I mean, and it's crazy too how once you kind of not secrets, but you find your little what would be the right word to use, but the little things that you do to kind of I'll use this as an example. When I first started, I was like, okay, every intro to every episode, I'm going to have a beer. And then it turned out most of my time recording my intros was on Sunday morning. So I was like, I don't need to have a beer on Sunday morning. Yeah, unless I'm going to a brewery to go record. So then it gets to the point where I was like, all right, I don't need to do that anymore. I'm already having beer on the show with the brewer or whoever I'm talking to in that interview. I don't need to do it on the intro anymore.
Yeah, it's the timing of that also. I mean, sometimes I'll drink beer while recording. A lot of it comes down to time, like what you're doing at the time, where you're at, and what beer is available. And sometimes too, I try to do certain beers during the season. That also, I try not to do like a stout in the summer. So also that seasonability might be a thing. I did a stout in the summer one time, but that was because it was covering that topic I was doing. But that could also be a factor.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, stouts during the summer, my brother used to make fun of me because I would have a Guinness during the summer and he'd be like, you're fucking gross. What are you doing?
I know people done that. I know a guy who would drink stouts all the time. He only drinks stouts. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. It's him being him. But he would not go to certain breweries if he didn't have a stout. he only wanted stouts. He was very passionate about his stout. I said, okay, went to beer festivals. He's looking for a stout. I thought, well, it's July. I mean, he found a stout, but there's only like 2. That's all he had. But I thought, hey, people like what they like. I mean,
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, to each his own. I mean, some people love like the barrel aged, like barley wines and stuff like that. For me, like even like when it comes to like barrel aged stouts, I could have like a little 3 or 4 ounce pour. I ain't drinking the whole bottle.
That's my thing with those. They're good beers, but sometimes the bottles were so big. I thought that's like could be 3 people. I mean, to drink the whole bottle, it's like drinking a bottle of bourbon because they have a higher ABV. And I thought, no way, dude, I cannot drink that whole thing. You're going to get trashed.
Oh, no doubt.
Exactly. So some breweries like Artisan Prairie Ales makes like the 12 ounce bottles, which is more doable.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, I try to I do enjoy a good stout like in the winter. Everyone I can't drink them all year round, but I do I still love Guinness. I still love Murphy's. But I love some dry stouts. I'm not a pastry stout every once in a while, but I do love a good dry stout.
Yeah, pastry stouts for me are like a hit and miss. I don't have them very often. They're really sweet, so I got to have those in a smaller glass. Yeah. Dry stouts for me are definitely more doable. Those are more barrel-aged stouts. Jackrabbit has a good barrel-aged program. So they have like 4 stouts come out back in November, went during Black Friday. They're all good. I bought 2 out of 4 of the bottles, and those are good. So I had a flight out of all 4, but they're all good. So I bought 2 out of the 4 that were newer for me, but they were really up there. But the bottle size is also nice. 16-ounce bottles, not too big, not too small, just the right size. But also those beers, you got to have those in the right occasion.
100%. Wanted to ask you too, because I feel like when you go back and you listen to you mentioned listening to yourself, it's always kind of weird because you always kind of feel like when you hit your stride. I feel like when it comes to podcasting, when do you feel like that kind of happened for you?
I would say maybe after the first year, late in the first year. When I first started a podcast, I was living in a studio apartment in downtown Sacramento. Not the best place to record. A little noisy outside.
Okay.
Or you hear traffic outside. People screaming, people fighting. Downtown Sacramento, usually a little dicey. So I moved to Natomas when I bought a place. Better, more friendly in terms of recording. But also, I had to cover my windows because I got to focus. And so I think I got a new microphone. So, I think it was late in the first year, and also trying to get more in a groove because more of a friendly recording environment. And also I have more control over what I do. So I still probably think it's still maybe a work in progress depending on the episode or on the day or what I'm doing. I think there's always room for improvement in that process. So I think for every podcaster who's in that situation, he's got to keep developing themselves and working on their craft.
Oh, 1,000%, man. And I feel like that's when I go back, I don't really go back anymore, but when I used to try to listen to the episodes I'm sure they're not half as bad as we think, but there's still I'm my own worst critic. And
same here. Yeah.
Yeah. And because we want it, we're perfectionists. At least I feel like just from us, the way you and I have been talking, I feel like we're both in that same boat, and we always want it to be better.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. It's James Cameron, the film director, how he is as a director. I kind of try and take his approach. And also, sometimes some episodes I do are scripted. Script is a little more of a challenge sometimes. I do more ad-libbing. Some episodes I do require a script. That could also, I haven't done that in a while, so I may have to go back and do some more exercise on how that's going to work when I get those episodes out there.
Oh, definitely. I feel like when you're talking with someone or you have a guest on the show, it's probably harder. You're doing it by yourself, doing the script by yourself. It's probably... I always have a hard time paying attention because I always just want to go not off the rails, but kind of wing it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm sure that could be tough sometimes.
Yeah. It's because there's ups and downs that come along the way.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite episodes that you've done?
I really all liked all my guest interviews, doing the guest interviews. Those are always good, having people come on, subject matter experts, talk with those in the beer industry. My first guest interview was with Kevin Bryant, who wrote a book about NFL espionage. That was great.
Cool.
Back in October, I talked to Karen Stolzno. We talked about the belief in the paranormal. That was great. But this guest interviews, having them come on to talk about their stories, their backgrounds, doing the road to 40, talking about with those from the psychology field about what it means to turn 40, why it's not that bad, but also about what happens after 40, like, finding love after 40. What does that entail? But also the positive side turning 40, but also when millennials turn 40, but also just learning more about that, getting their input on that. That was also a great experience.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check those out. That sounds so interesting, and I find that kind of stuff fascinating.
It is. I mean, yeah,
because you don't really know, everybody has a different thought process, and just hearing kind of what it means to to other people, like you said, turning 40 it sounds really interesting.
Yeah, also over the summer, I got this idea from the last year's craft beer summit. So in the intro speech at the craft beer summit, it was really grim about the beer industry. And some of the brewers I talked to, they were really, they felt they're on their way out. There was something mentioned talking about craft beer is going to have what they call a Joe Camel moment, and that all these regulations that are coming is going to get the tobacco industry treatment. It felt nihilistic. So I talked to Charles Webb, a professor, about this topic. We talked about nihilism and why it's such a hazardous thing to have in your mind. Mm-hmm. So that was also good about talking with him about nihilism and why it's a dangerous mindset for people to have. That idea came from the state of mind in a beer industry from those I talked to from that last year's craft beer summit.
Wow. That's really cool. I'm going to have to listen to that one.
It's an interesting topic because it's something that I think is really in our society right now, given post-COVID, all these shutdowns, the breweries closing down, breweries struggling to survive, and how all the struggles are facing. And it did feel nihilistic at times. And I felt that topic had to be addressed.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if you follow him on Instagram. I was talking to Doug Vilicki. He's really in tune with the craft beer industries, and he's actually at Revolution Brewing in Chicago. And him and I were talking the other day about it because, I was telling him, man, a few of the breweries down here by me closed that I was, that are some of my favorites. And he was telling me, he's like, yeah, it's crazy. It looks really bad on paper, but for every 6 breweries that closed, 5 new ones open.
Yeah. And there's always,
thankfully, not as bad as,
Yeah, and I think that the beer industry, I think right now it's facing challenges. It's not easy, but it's not going to go away. I mean, I talked to guys on the podcast about the beer industry. Beer's been through a lot. It's been through economic decline. It's been through enemy. Belgium's occupied by the Germans in World War II. Belgian beer is still around. Yeah. There's always something going on with beer. Beer always finds a way to survive.
Definitely. It definitely does. I just have a couple more things I want to ask you. First, any fun stories, remember, throughout your podcasting journey?
I mean, going back to San Francisco, when I went out there, when I turned 40, when I was going to go check out Liquid Gold, that tap room. And I thought, I would talk about this on the podcast. I thought, where's this place at? So I had to walk through a Tenderloin to get there, Tenderloin district to get there. Yeah. And I thought I could walk through the Tenderloin or take the long way around. And I thought I'll walk. So I walked through the Tenderloin. I'm wearing my Russian River Pliny the Younger shirt.
There you go.
And I have my sunglasses on. I'm walking straight forward, minding my own business, just kind of keeping to myself. And I'm walking, I had my head shaved and wear my sunglasses. I don't know if it was directed at me or not, but some guy yelled out, "Hey, detective." Yeah. And I thought, is that me he's talking to? I don't know. So I go to Liquid Gold. I walk right on in there. Talk to bartender saying, some guy yelled, "Hey, detective." He thought, you probably thought you were a cop. The cops are always there, That was pretty interesting doing that. And that was also fun. And also, last year I went and waited in line for Pliny the Younger. Okay. The 20th anniversary. I got there at 4:00 in the morning. They opened up at 10:00 in the morning. So I was standing in line, just talking to people who talking to fellow beer enthusiasts about Pliny the Younger, talking about beer. Some guys that flew in there from Colorado, and just having that experience with them in Santa Rosa, and just waiting in the dark. it was a nice way to pass the time, talk about why we're there, what beer means to us, and just having that experience. Because one thing about beer festivals and going to breweries, beer is always there, but it's also about the people that you meet and the experience you have with them.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I love the industry and I love talking, to brewers or owners, because like everybody's destination is the same, but the journey to get there is different.
Yeah,
and like no two stories are the same.
Yeah, and there's like all these stories at beer festivals. You meet people there, you might see them again, you might not. But it's really about the people and that moment you have with them and the memories. I mean, every beer festival I go to several a year. There's always something going on. Some of the breweries I know there, some I met for the first time, finding new beer and just, seeing all the passion people have for this industry, but also breaking down some myths, because I see a lot of age groups there. You talk about what they call Gen Z not being into beer. I see that demographic at beer festivals.
So do I.
This whole thing about Gen Z not liking beer, I'm a skeptic of that, because why am I seeing them at beer festivals? Because they're there. That's also the thing I really don't believe totally, because I think eventually people get into beer maybe old. Like I got into beer at age 29 officially. Maybe craft beer is something that people don't get into in college that happens later. So when I see all these numbers about sober curious, I was doing dry January. I mean, people, I don't blame people for doing it. That's their choice. That's fine. I think this low ABV beers, it's interesting, but also probably got a long way to go. But I still think, though, that all these fears that people have about beer, I think a lot of them are overblown.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, because I see it all the time. I mean, even when I go to breweries, you see, like, it's like, you do see, like, the 35 to 40, to 44, like, the big demographic, where like the 25 to 40 demo there at breweries. But you still see, like you said, at beer festivals, you see that at, breweries, especially like really like hipster breweries, but like, stuff like that. You'll see like hipsters there and stuff. And it's like, in that demo.
Yeah, I mean, there's beers for everybody. I mean, there's always something. There's always the crowd. Everyone's always being represented. And so, I've always been a skeptic of this whole sober curious, like the Death Star of beer. I thought, no, the Death Star eventually blew up, and it will this time. I mean, beer's going to be fine. I think maybe, inflation now, that's a big thing. That's
definitely.
I've talked to guys who own breweries who don't see the regulars as much because of inflation. So that there's a legitimate threat, unfortunately. Hopefully that does die down, but that has been a consistent thing for brewers I've talked to about the price of supplies, and also not getting as many patrons as they used to. And also, downtown Sacramento is not what it used to be post-COVID. It's kind of a ghost town sometimes, and not many people go into restaurants or breweries, but there's a lot of factors that go into that. Also, landlords not renewing the lease of breweries. That's another threat breweries do face. So I think those are the real threats. Obviously, I don't own a brewery. I don't see those numbers. But from when I talk to brewers, inflation and also lack of patrons due to inflation has been a really big, dangerous threat for them.
Well, definitely. And that's like you mentioned before about like, there's a beer out there for everyone. I've been trying to and I'll continue to push I started the hashtag Find Your Beer.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to get people out there and every episode with, support local, drink local, and find your beer, because if we can get more people out there to these places, these places that make great stuff, great beer. I mean, anything we can do to help the industry, that's, it's the best.
Yeah, because I just wonder where beer is going to be in 10 years from now. When I was at Russian River last year, they had a hop water on the menu. I thought, well, with the tap room of the future, have like half beer, then other half be seltzers, ciders, and sparkling water with the hops. That could be a reality, but I think breweries will adapt, but beer will still be there.
Oh yeah, and I feel like you're right about the hop water, because we're seeing that, you're seeing that more and more on menus.
Yeah.
So I mean, and it's just, one of the things too, it's like if you can get somebody in there to try that, they may like the way that those hoppy notes to it. Maybe they'll want to try a beer.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, I think eventually that can help them get into the industry, because maybe I talked to Jeff Allworth a few months ago. We talked about this topic, and we think a lot of it is cyclical. that it's kind of like a
definitely.
cycle. It's a cycle, and the cycle just hasn't been completed yet. And I think eventually it will. And once it's over, breweries will still be there.
Well, definitely. We'll finish up with a couple questions. One
Sure.
one I'd love to ask is the desert island beers.
Oh yeah.
You could pick one craft, one domestic. What would you choose?
For
craft, which would you one for each? Yeah.
Beer, I would like a lager. Say Flatland had a nice Vienna lager a couple years ago. That would be a prime example of a nice craft lager from Flatland Brewing's craft lager. That would be nice. A Vienna lager they brewed. That would be one. And for commercial, or like, you just say Smithwick's. Can that count? Smithwick's Irish Red Ale. That's a nice Irish Red Ale. I love that one. I don't do it anymore. I used to have it with a shot of Jameson. That was a nice pairing, but not anymore now. I used to, but a nice crafted red ale that just continues to just never disappoint.
I love that, man. That's great. Honestly, I'm so appreciative of you coming on and
thanks for having me.
Show today. One last question: if you were going to give advice, I mean, from one podcaster to another, if you're going to give advice to someone that wanted to start a podcast, what would you say?
I say just have patience and enjoy the journey. And also don't worry about the numbers. You just do what you do. For a podcaster, I would say just do what they want to do. Do the podcast they want to do. Enjoy the ride. Have patience. Trust me, that always hasn't been easy for me as well. Mm-hmm. But just enjoy the journey and have the passion, because several podcasters, I see podcasters disappear. They stop podcasting. I'm not sure why. Sometimes they say so, like life changes, things happen in their life where they can't do it. So that happens, but sometimes they just disappear. I seen one podcast one time where they got into a podcast network. And I thought, great for them. They got it. They got to a network. 2 episodes later, I never heard from them again. They stopped podcasting. I thought, why is that? They reached the top. They got to the mountain. Now, me, I don't want to join a network. I like being independent. Mm-hmm. But this one, they went on their Instagram. They got to a network. They're all happy about it. But after 2 episodes, I'm not sure what happened. It's like they're gone. And it sucks seeing that, because I hope it's okay for them. But I think for anyone starting a podcast, just have patience, enjoy the journey, just keep podcasting, and just go for it.
I feel 100% the same way. And one thing I was going to, I always try to tell people, because they tell me about one. I would say if they want to start one and they listen to mine, just DM me, ask me any questions you have, and
And I've done that. Yeah, I've done that when I was starting out. I DM'd a couple podcasters, and they're more than happy to provide advice, because it's a community. That's what podcasting is. And also, for another thing I tell podcasters, and this is a really big one for me, I got this from a podcaster from Paris with Life, and that is.
Did I lose you?
Well,
I think we're back.
We're back. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think what I would say is, from the Paris with Life podcast, never say anything negative about a fellow podcaster. That's like, support each other, help each other out, and just help each other out, because it's a community. It's not Game of Thrones. It's not a competition. It's a community. So never speak ill will of a fellow podcaster. That's another one.
Oh, definitely. I mean, and one thing I always try to tell people too, like, make sure your heart's really in it. And like, the biggest thing too is being consistent. I feel like you have to be consistent. Even at least initially, you have to do it. I mean, I've done it for it's going to sound different, because this will be out in a few weeks. This coming Sunday will be episode 100 for me. I mean,
congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Like, it took time to find my footing and stuff like that. But if you're really passionate about it and you really care, like, don't get into it for money, because
same here. Yeah, exactly. Same here. Yeah. I mean, I see, that's another thing too. I don't do it for the money. I don't get paid for doing this podcasting, but I like doing it. You just do it for the love of the craft, because, that's another thing about money. People want to get paid for podcasting. I thought that brings things. They might lose creative control. They might not be able to say what they want to say. So you're getting paid, but you're kind of, you're not going to be happy with it. I wouldn't be happy with it. I love doing it. I just love doing it. It's just a great thing to do. I mean, for me, that experience, that is better than the money. Talking to people, meeting people, and just having that journey, that's better than money. So, it's not a money-making thing. Yeah, some podcasts out to sign these big money deals, but I thought I would not be happy with that. I just like doing it. I mean,
same.
And so that's another thing. Yeah, that also just for them to just embrace the journey. I mean, and
I love that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. And also, this may be one more thing too, but see, have a niche. I'm not really a niche guy. I mean, I know they say have a niche. There's a new thing out there saying maybe being niche is not what it's all used to be. Like maybe you're not niche, you can adapt. So that could be something. It's more probably a bolder thing to say, but don't worry about not having a niche.
Oh yeah, and to add on that, there's a community out there for every podcast.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
The people that like what you like will find you.
Exactly. Because last summer I did a episode about North Korea's beer scene. I thought there's got to be someone out there who's going to like talking about the beer scene in North Korea. It's a wacky topic. It's actually a beer scene out there. I thought I'd do an episode about it because I just want to put it out there because I found it so intriguing.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, keep doing what you're doing, man. Like honestly,
yeah, you as well.
Listen to the, to that 40, the road to 40. That sounds super interesting. Yeah. I'm brewing a beer tomorrow, so I might just have that on while I'm listening to it.
Okay, yeah. Just like I did 3 episodes in a row on that topic, and I also want to continue talking about midlife content as well. Been planning episodes based on that about midlife content, and for those who want to tune in about what that means in their life and how they can navigate whatever comes with it.
Love it, man. Well, everybody listening, make sure you check out the Brew Stilled Podcast and support Brandon. He's a really great guy, and I'm glad we got to do this, man.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you got it, bud. We'll stay on a chat for a minute after this, but we'll go and finish it. Everybody, make sure you chat. Check out at Brewstilled on Instagram, and it's on Spotify, all the major platforms. Cheers.
All right. Well, hope you guys enjoyed that. Like I said, Brandon, such a good dude. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. And definitely, go give his show a listen if you guys get the chance. All right. What do we got coming up? So next week's episode is Bridget and Yvette from Feathered Serpent. Such a fun episode. Big words and big burps. You'll get it next week. And then after that is On Rotation from Dallas. And then I'm also recording 3 episodes this week. Going to be recording with Petacola since I didn't get a chance to do that out there because of work when I was out there in Dallas. Also going to be recording on Wednesday at Eureka. So I'm excited for that one. One of my favorite beers of the year last year was Fairway Finder. They did a collab. Eureka did the collab with Creature Comforts. Man, that beer was so good. So I can't wait to talk about that as well. Looking forward to it. That's going to be fun. And then on Saturday, I'm going to be recording at Artifacts in San Clemente. So stoked about that. We got some other stuff coming up. I want to know, because I got sick. I was supposed to record with Chris at Bonaventure Brewing Company, but I didn't want to get anybody sick, and I, still wasn't feeling all that great. But so apologies about that. I will plan get something set up with you soon, and then also I'm recording with Sandra in a few weeks. I think on the 23rd. So I got some good stuff coming up. Excited. Going to try to because next week I don't think I have. Oh no. The week after that, I don't think I have anything. So I'm going to try to figure something out. Or I might have something on the calendar. I got to double check. Sometimes I get lost. All right. Like I said, hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Hope you guys have a great week. Everybody stay healthy. Don't get sick. It sucks. But at least I get to enjoy a beer at Green Cheek today. That'll be fun. Morgan's going to come along. And she likes Green Cheek. They have some dog treats. So, all right. I'm going to shut up now. Don't forget to support local, drink local, and find your beer. Cheers, Tap Fam.